I'm Michaela and I work in the Faculty of Science, and we have Aimee, we have Casey, we have Artemis, and we have John here for our student panel. I did make it exciting. I'm just going to put this up briefly because I spent so much time on it. I've got this exciting thing which kind of shows a little bit about what they're all doing and what they're all studying. But I think what we might do to start this student panel off is just to get them to introduce themselves and what they're studying, and maybe a fun fact about them. So we'll start with Aimee because you're at the top of my screen. So off you go, Aimee, if you'd like to give us a little bit of a spiel.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So my name is Aimee, as you can see on the screen, and I'm in my third year of doing science and global studies as a double degree. And I'm majoring in physiology in the science half of my double degree, and then international studies in the other half. And basically, I think a fun fact about me is that I'm currently in New Zealand because I was visiting my family before the lockdown started. And so now I have freedom, whereas all my beautiful friends back in Melbourne do not. So yes, that's my little spiel.
Cool, thanks, Aimee. All right, Casey, you're up next. What do you have to say?
Hi, I'm Casey. I'm in my fourth year studying engineering and science double degree. My major is in earth science, which is a fancy way of saying geology. Fun fact about me, I am from Canada, so I'm a domestic student, but for anyone who's wondering, that's what the accent is.
Thanks, Casey. Artemis, how's your battery going?
Stressful, but it's hanging in there. Hi everyone, I'm Artemis. I'm in my final year of my double degree in arts and science, and in my science degree I do an extended major in environmental science. And a fun fact about me is that currently sitting next to me I have several $100s worth of DVDs, Disney DVDs. I'm a bit of a Disney obsessive, and I've been watching them on the loop to get by lockdown. So yeah.
Cool, excellent. And John?
Yeah, so hi, I'm John. I'm a first year Bachelor of Science and Biomedical Science, so a little bit different. Planning on majoring in psychology currently. That may change, who knows. A fun fact about me, I'm addicted to collecting old books. It's honestly a problem at this point. So I'm surrounded by several $100s worth of old books.
Like when we say old, John, how old are we talking?
I think currently the oldest I have is 116 years old. Cool. So not like old, but like not new.
What's the topic of this 160-year-old book?
I'm trying to remember exactly which one it is now. I think it's, I remember now. It's a collection of essays on one of the books of the Bible.
Oh, okay.
I grabbed it because I was like, that's old, that's niche. Who knows? Could be interesting.
There you go. That's very cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we appear more as a Brady Bunch rather than a weird side vision. Thanks for everybody who's joined us. That's a bit of an introduction for our student panel today. As you can see, they're all studying a wide range of different things, which is great because it kind of really shows you all of the different things that you can study in a science degree at Monash. I'm going to ask them a few questions throughout this presentation / panel / casual discussion. And if you do have any questions that you would like to ask them, please put them in the Q&A below, and they're more than happy to answer any questions that you've got about student experience, about the nitty-gritty of what you might study in a course or anything like that. And after we finish here, they'll be hanging around in the Welcome to Science booth afterwards. So if you do have any questions, you want to have a chat with them one-on-one, you're more than welcome to as well. So I'm just going to ask some questions out to the floor, and if anybody wants to answer them, you're more than welcome to. So does anybody remember the reason why they chose to study science, or particularly science at Monash? John, you're the most closest to this because you just finished year 12 last year, didn't you? So yeah. For why you chose Monash and why you chose science?
So I chose Monash. Monash was two reasons why. One was that I knew to some extent I wanted to do like biomedical science type things. So in my head, the only real options were Melbourne or Monash. So that narrowed it down. I chose Monash though, because I've been coming to Monash for different events, different camps and whatnot for, I think it was the past like 9 years or so. So I felt comfortable coming into Monash, felt kind of like second home at that point. So I was like, yeah, I'll choose Monash. I chose science instead of just doing biomed or doing something else entirely, because I wanted to do biomed, but then I also I loved science, and doing science gives me a little bit more flexibility than just doing biomed, in that I can do, for example, I can do psychology, have the space to do psychology, and like do some plant science units because I love plants as well, which I could probably get to work somehow if I did biomed, but doing science allowed me to do other things than just useful for medicine stuff.
Okay, cool. Excellent. That's a good question. Anybody else have any cool reason as to why they chose to come to Monash, or why they like science over everything else? I don't know. Casey?
For me,
area, so
Monash, because I could do engineering alongside it. So the only other place that I'm pretty sure the only place I found that I could really do that was RMIT, but that was very structured. Whereas Monash engineering, you start with a general first year, so I didn't have to choose right away. And science, because science is cool. I like science. I used to love chemistry, actually. That was my favorite in high school. I thought I'd be doing the whole be in a lab coat and use a pipette, and that would be my life. But turns out there's a lot more cool things you can do. So
did you ever, because you're doing earth science as your major, Casey, did you ever study earth science at school, or did you just pick that up when you came here?
No, I loved rocks as a kid, but no one in my family did it or anything. It's not really offered as a high school subject. No. So I just sort of picked it up. I was like, oh yeah, I remember I liked rocks as a kid. And then I got into earth science and I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. So yeah.
And did you just decide that you were going to major in it right in first year, or did you wait a little bit, because you don't have to pick your major straight away? So
yeah, I picked it pretty much straight away. So in the first year unit, it's titled EAE, so Earth, Atmosphere and Environment. So it covers a huge range, pretty much anything to do with climate, Earth, geology, geography, volcanoes, all that fun stuff is in the one subject. And I loved it, but then the times when we were talking about rocks and identifying those, I was like, this is what I like.
Okay, cool. And Artemis, you're doing a similar sort of thing, but kind of very different. Did you also start, well, you didn't really start off in environmental science when you came to Monash, did you? You started somewhere else and then you changed over. So do you want to give us a bit of a story about that?
I do. Yeah, so well, in year 12, I was a bit indecisive about, I loved science, but I do enjoy the arts. So I picked Monash for the double degree, and I also picked it because it was, I liked the actual place. So hopefully when open day, hopefully fingers crossed that open day is able to go through, because you guys can see the campus. But I liked how it was modern, and also the buildings are very inspiring. The chemistry building is amazing, and all the rest of it. So, but no, my pathway was interesting to say the least, because I started doing ecology and geology and did the basic subjects in first year, and wasn't really sure what kind of science pathway I wanted to pursue. And I was pursuing ecology and geology, but a teacher actually told me that my subjects lined up very nicely with the environmental extended major. And so it was by that recommendation that I took a look, and it actually was perfect. So I then started doing that at the end of second year, and ever since I've been doing that. So I love it. It was a perfect fit. And but yeah.
Thanks, Mira. We've just got everyone says we're very cool, so I'm sure that's what you guys know about me. So thanks, Artemis.
Meet us in person.
Yeah, we wish we could meet you in person, Mira. It's a bit of a shame that we're kind of in lockdown, but it is what it is. So yeah. Aimee, do you know why you chose to come to Monash, or is it the same thing about the double degree, or is it a different reason?
Yeah, so basically for me, when I was in year 12, I had my heart set on doing medicine, and so didn't really even consider science at all, only until I didn't get a good enough score on my UMAT or UCAT now test, and then I was forced, just, you know, with only a month to go, to kind of reconsider my options. So kind of similar to John, I did look at biomed, and I ended up getting an offer to do biomed at another university, as well as the degree I'm doing, which is science and global studies. And so I was put in a really strange position where even during O week, I was still enrolled at 2 different universities, and I had to make this kind of big decision. And so I think the real changing factor for me in choosing Monash was the flexibility of doing the double degree, because for me, I'm a person who has a really big passion for like making social change and kind of using my degree to make an impact on the world. And I loved that I could do that through global studies at Monash, but also in science, they do incorporate those values of kind of using science for good. How can you change the world? And that kind of thing. And so that was really the big differentiator. And it still meant as well that even if I did do science, I could still do medicine in the future if I wanted to. And yeah, so that was basically my decision making.
Awesome. Now, Aimee, you said you like the social change and the sort of that sort of stuff. You're also part of the peer mentoring program, aren't you, this year? So you've been doing a bit of that. Can you give us a bit more information about what happens in a peer mentoring program and what you do?
Yeah, awesome. So I'm an event manager for the science peer mentoring program, and also in the arts program as well. But basically what the program is you get paired up if you're in your first year of science. Every single first year science student gets paired up with a mentor, and you're in a group with other first year students who are your fellow mentees. And that means you've got probably a group of around 8 people who they're kind of like your little gang with your one mentor. And throughout the semester and the whole year, there are events which the program runs to kind of give you opportunities to meet people, just have some fun. There's a lot of free food and that kind of thing. And most importantly, the mentor is able to give advice and support you as a first year student throughout that really tricky first year. So even if it's just things from kind of like, oh, where's the best coffee to get, up until like kind of more academic stuff like, oh, do you think this is a good subject to do? Or how do I choose what major and that kind of thing. So that program's really, really great for supporting you in the transition from school to university.
That's fantastic. It's good that we have these programs that exist, because I am also a Monash alumni and I don't remember any of these things existing when I was many, many years ago in my first year. And I remember struggling to use the library in my second year going, how do I do this? I've never been to the library. Don't tell anyone. But yeah, it's so much better now that they've got all these support networks that people can access. And there's also like a peer assisted study sessions thing as well, which is more of an academic mentoring program as well. So a lot of you, apart from you, John, the other 3 ladies are in now their sort of 3rd and 4th and 5th years. Have you had any really great internship opportunities or cool experiences overseas? Because I know that lots of people ask about this, and yes, you can go overseas, obviously not at the moment, but in the future you'll be able to go. Maybe we'll start with you, Casey, and then we'll sort of cycle around and maybe give us a bit of a spiel about what you've kind of internship-wise, and also if you've been overseas.
Yeah, so I'll start more domestic. So not with my course, but I found this internship by myself with a mining company over last summer. So I applied for it and went through all the fun interviews and stages and things. And so that's where I spent my summer in New South Wales being a geologist, which was amazing. It was really cool to put those skills to work and sort of see why I'm doing the course that I'm doing. So that was the formal internship. That was 3 months, and it's very common in science and engineering to, like, for companies to have those sort of opportunities. So if you just look up stuff like internships, you can even get an idea of the kind of things that you might be into in the future. For geology as well, we have field trips. So for every unit, we have at least 1 field trip. So that could either be a weekend thing, or one that was actually unfortunately cancelled this year but is going ahead next year is Broken Hill. So that's a 2 to 3 week mapping field trip in the outback, middle of nowhere, hardcore science. So that's a pretty cool opportunity. Hopefully, looking forward to that. Overseas, not yet, because engineering it's a bit harder to do overseas, because you need to get accreditations and there's a whole bunch of fancy stuff. But hopefully heading to Malaysia when I can for the intercampus exchange, which is something I've been looking forward to the whole time. So it's much easier than a normal exchange because the Malaysian campus is still part of Monash, and it has exactly the same subjects. Not all subjects are offered, but the ones that are there are exact equivalents. So it's super easy, and you can get a scholarship to go. They take care of lots of expenses and things like that. So yeah, hopefully heading there, but that's it for me for trips.
Cool, excellent. Aimee, have you done any sort of overseas stuff or any internships during your course?
Yeah, so I'm yet to do any internships, and I'm hoping to do one next year in semester 1. But I have very gratefully been able to go overseas in my double degree as part of the global studies side of things. So in 2020, at the very start in January, I was lucky enough to go to India on that travel trip, and that fit really well alongside my science degree. And a lot of the knowledge that I actually learnt, even though it was technically classified under the arts global studies side of stuff, really has contributed and enriched my science knowledge and in terms of impacting the world. But luckily, in plan for next year, I am going on exchange to King's College in London next year in semester 2. Yay! And I am doing 2 science subjects whilst overseas there. So that's a really exciting and great opportunity that you can have in a science degree. If you save your electives up for an exchange and you have a university which kind of is in partnership with Monash, that's a really great way that you can do some of your science degree at a completely new place, new university, and it really, as I've heard from other experiences, really helps your degree and just gives you that little extra edge if you're looking for jobs in the future as well.
So exciting, Aimee. Oh my gosh, wow.
That's so good.
I'm excited.
John, I know that you're in first year, so you have all of these.
It's hard. Like,
yeah,
we'll get there.
Exactly right. I know. Artemis has done a lot of cool stuff too. So Artemis, I don't know if you want to tell us about, I don't know what to start with because you've done too many things. So maybe start with the overseas and then come back to the internships that you've done.
So I don't know if that's Cinque Terre behind you, Aimee, because I should know better, but I did in November of 2019, so literally, the last chance before lockdown happened. I went away for an intensive unit in the Cinque Terre as part of the Monash overseas learning, and it was just a week and a half, but Monash does do, also along with exchanges and longer term options, you can do short options depending on what sort of unit you do. And so I went to Italy for land, environment, and cultural sort of learning, and that was hands-on. Basically, it was a great consolidation of 3 years of study of both my arts and science degree subjects. But in the meantime, I've done a few internships. So this has actually been critical for me in being able to secure a graduate role, which I have for next year. And experience does, it really gives you a major competitive edge, especially if you're not doing a postgrad. It's almost crucial. So my first internship was with a climate change think tank called Beyond Zero Emissions. I did that through university. I did it as a unit, so it counted towards my credit points. And then the second one I did was with the Victorian government. So I was in the Department of Premier and Cabinet in the energy, resources and environment team. And then within that, the climate change and energy team. So I did 3 months of really amazing stuff, which covered that was January to March last year. So it was from bushfires to COVID. So I got the full spectrum, which was wild. And then this year I was with the Bureau of Meteorology. So that was a unique experience because I mean, I accidentally applied for the IT department, so I did 2 months of IT experience. But within that, there was a way for me to link with environmental science, and that was also because of the topics that the projects I was doing was obviously all for weather forecasting, climate change analytics. So yeah, so I've done those. Yeah.
And which, if you don't mind me asking, where are you heading off to next year for your graduate role, Artemis?
Well, I will be, I'm really happy to say, because this was my first preference of job. So I'll be an environmental consultant at Arup, which is an engineering company. They do engineering or building in cities mainly. And they've helped design the Sydney Opera House, the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. They've done the gherkin in London, that big spiral thing. It's called a gherkin, and many other amazing things. So yeah.
Cool, excellent. Congratulations. That's very exciting news. So well done. There's a few questions in the Q&A. So John, I don't know if you might be able to tell us about this, but are you part of any clubs at Monash so far?
I am.
Yes,
So
can you tell us a bit about that?
During O Week, especially, so I love social aspects of things. They're huge to me. Is making friends, just events. I love events so much. During O Week, I made some friends through group chats and stuff like that for units before uni actually started. So I met up with friends in O Week, and we just went to every stall. We looked at like what interests us, what things we were already doing as like hobbies, what sorts of things we were like, oh yeah, that could be interesting to like take up. So I had like friends that were joining like I think it's like a boating club one of my friends is in, and then several of us joined it's the, I haven't meant to blank what it's called, board riders club, which is like snowboarding, skating, longboarding and surfing. Then there's all the like academic clubs, which I think I'm really bad at remembering what ones I'm actually in and which ones I'm not in, but that I was looking at. I'm in like the psychology club, which like represents psychology and neuroscience students and helps like advocate rights and just provides assistance in all regards. Then my favorite one, this one I only joined recently because I didn't realize they were a thing, because I must have missed the stall during O Week, is the permaculture club, because I love plants, but I'm not doing them as university because, well, I am kind of, but not fully. So they run a permaculture garden on campus, which they do working bees, not right now because lockdowns and COVID, and because winter, there's not a whole lot you can do garden-wise for working bees either. But they run the Monash Permaculture Garden on campus and the Monash Community Garden, I think it's called, which is off like near the business park, which is Monash, and then families in the area, I'm pretty sure, which they all work together on the garden.
That sounds very cool. I've done a little bit of work with the Permaculture Club over the years, and they do some really cool stuff, and then they harvest their own food, and then it'll be cook up, and then they either give the excess food off to food bank or anything like that, or various other things. So that's pretty cool. A couple of other questions. Does anybody want to sort of go through what a typical week at Monash looks like for them? I mean, it will be different for all of you, but if anyone wants to explain what it kind of is like, maybe Casey, you can give us a little bit of what your week might look like.
Yeah, well, during COVID, obviously it's a bit different. So during lockdown, all classes are online. So that looks a little bit different, but in general, per subject, especially with science and engineering subjects, are very similar. So you've got lectures, anywhere from 1 to 3 hours a week of lecture content, which is the classic sitting in a theater and then listening to somebody making notes. There's variations on that. Some subjects, I know physics does it a little bit differently. Chemistry does it a little bit differently, but there's still that 1 to 3 hours of content. Then you've got practicals, which are generally question and answer based things. So you're given sort of a set of questions and you work through them either with a group or in your own time. sometimes those are tutorials as well. I know the names of different classes don't mean a whole lot, but a lot of them are interchangeable. Basically, practicals and tutorials are more interactive. Tutorials are usually just sitting at a desk. Practicals are, they can be, but they can also be like out doing stuff with your hands. And then, so that's maybe 1 or 2 hours a week of practicals / tutorials. And then labs are for especially things like chemistry. So it's generally 3 hours a week that you do in first year at least that are labs. So that's the full hands-on, doing all the cool pipetting and making things pretty colors and all of that stuff. Obviously a lot more chemistry that goes on, but yeah, so in first year for me, it was about, I think around 24 contact hours, they're the actual hours that you have a class. That's what we call contact hours. So it changes a bit with online because generally lectures are recorded, but the other classes are still like you do on Zoom, or, if they can be in person, they will be. But yes, and then you have later in semester, you've got assignments and group projects. We love some group projects. For engineering, at least, there's always one per semester. So it's worth, 20% or whatever of your grade, and you're given a big project or a big problem, and you use what you've learned in class to come up with a solution. Yes.
I think that's awesome. That's a very good rundown. I mean, and as I said, every one of these students would have a different sort of week looking, a different looking sort of week. They're all doing different things. John, you're in first year at the moment. Would you say your experience is a little bit different to Casey's because you're studying different things, or is it kind of pretty similar? I
would say so, just because I feel like my course is very, like the two halves interact very differently. For example, like psychology and maths is a lot less like hands-on type stuff. It's a lot more like psychology, for example, you do lectures, but then you go to tutorials, which is kind of like a class type thing. You don't really, it's not like you're like touching a brain and like poking it and whatnot. But then like biomed is a lot more like I'm going into a lab, I'm doing tests on cells for 2-3 hours and I'm doing a quiz afterwards. So it's very, it's the two, currently at least, it's the two ends of the like hands-on versus the lot of theoretical type stuff where it's classes more than labs.
Yeah. And it would really depend on what you were studying, because I mean, Aimee, you're doing physiology. Are you doing a lot more lab-based stuff as part of that major?
Yeah, so usually it's like a lab every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. But yeah, there definitely is a more big emphasis on participating in the labs a lot more.
Yeah. And if you're doing things like environmental and earth science, so Artemis and Casey, you probably find that you get more opportunities to go out in the field and, hike up mountains and dig stuff up and do all that sort of stuff. So it really is very different. Is that correct, Artemis?
Where your background, Michaela, is like that is the building that I have my classes in, and it's out in a reserve in a wetland, which is on campus, and yeah, that's where we do our ecology and environmental classes. You put on your boots and you go wading out and take samples, and it's all sorts of really, really fun things, and you get like, it's a great facility. You can see outdoors. It's amazing.
Cool. Excellent. As older students, because we don't have a huge amount of time left, as older students, is there any sort of advice that you might like to give a year 12 or year 10 student who might be looking at courses or wanting to know what they want to do with their lives? Is there anything that you might want to advise them on now, just as looking back a couple of years, what you wish you'd known or been able to give yourself advice on? John?
Yeah, I might, sorry.
Aimee can go, Aimee.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right.
No, I was just going to say, if I were to give my younger self some advice, it would be that there is a lot of flexibility once you're actually within the university system and once you're within Monash as a university. So even if you ended up choosing a degree, like let's say you're in biomed and you go, oh, I don't actually like this after a semester, it's actually very, very easy to transfer over to a different degree like science or arts, whatever it might be. there's a lot of flexibility, because I remember thinking when I was in year 12, oh my gosh, I've got to make this one decision and that's going to be the degree I'm going to do for the rest of my life, or it's going to be the trajectory of my life, job, whatever. It's just not true. It's very, very flexible, and you can always change, and you're not going to be even delayed that much in the grand scheme of life.
It's very wise advice, Aimee. Don, do you have anything that you'd like to tell your year 12 self?
Definitely two things. The first one is that like it's incredibly important. I've realized it now, that you like identifying your learning style and then playing to its strengths. So like for years you have teachers in high school going like, oh yeah, find your learning style. Are you like one of those people that like sit down and listen, or are you like ones that need to, and I was just like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Now I'm like that, if I had realized it sooner, I could have been working on like developing my learning style. But now that I do know, I'm so glad that I do, because it's helped me just actually concentrate, which I have huge problems with at times. And the other thing is I spent ages not knowing what I wanted to do, and then I realized what I wanted to do, because I found the intersection between what you're good at and what you enjoy. That's like the sweet spot. Like I love plants, but I'm not doing them as my major, because I realized like, yes, I enjoy it. Am I good at it? Yeah. But also like, I don't want to make that a career, because I think it'd take the fun out of it for me, in that like, I like plants, but like I'm a hobby gardener type person. I'm not like want to go into plant genetics, and that's not for me. So those two things.
Cool. Artemis, do you want to give your year 12 self any advice?
You know what? It's in the same vein as what John said. I don't know if I sort of, my experience has been, I was sort of unsure, and I gained more assurance of what I wanted to do over the course. And so the lesson I've taken away from that is just to do what you love. I think that's what's been my guiding mantra, motto. I think that through sticking with that, I've been able to discover something I'm really passionate about, and makes it worth my time. And I feel like I could be of service once I finish my uni degree out into the broader community, and give back what I've received as education from Monash. So yeah, definitely always just if you have a gut feeling saying I should do this or I shouldn't do this, it's always good to get other information to back that up. But yeah, it will generally be right. So follow your instinct and do what you love.
Cool. And Casey, lucky last.
I wish that I hadn't put so much pressure on myself in high school to know what I wanted to do. In high school, it was very much, you need to decide, right now. And there were so many teachers that were saying that, and it's just not true. Even the thing that you go into uni for, there's a very good chance that you might not even end up majoring in it, because you find something else that you like. So don't think that you have to have everything, sorted out, and that you have an absolute dream. Some people do, and that's awesome. But if you don't, that's not a bad thing at all. It just means you've got more opportunities to look for.
Cool. Thank you. Very wise advice from all of you. We have a few other questions left over. If anybody does have any questions from what we've just been talking about, feel free to put them in the Q&A. So number one question, I don't know if anybody can answer this, but are most subjects of the same level of difficulty, or does it vary between study areas? So I don't know if anyone's got an opinion on that.
Varies.
Yeah.
It varies. Sorry. Like part of it in particular is that it's not just like the actual work itself, because the work itself, it's not a huge difference between like a maths unit versus a psychology unit. It's really up to you, and like where your strengths lie, how difficult you find things. So like, I'm not great at chemistry. I try, but I struggle. I work hard, but like not always doing the best at it. So like for me, I know I find chem harder, even though it's not that much different. But then at the same time, it's also really like environment of the unit itself. I don't know exactly what, like, how to word that, but like a unit where everyone's like cooperative and helping each other is, and like everyone's like just not cheating, plagiarism, inclusion, no, none of that, but like is willing to like help those who need help, is going to be a lot easier than a unit where like everyone's very, no, I'm going to do better than you, so I'm not going to help you at all, which I haven't found yet. So I'm incredibly thankful for that.
I don't know if there's if anybody else has a differing opinion, but obviously, you know, it depends on what you're studying, what your strengths are. It depends on the level as well, because generally how first year units are a little bit of a recap of what you've done in year 12, just to make sure everyone's on the same sort of level playing field, so that when you're in 30 units, it builds on your skills from there. So that's kind of how that works.
I just wanted to say one thing.
Sure.
University is supposed to be hard. It's not easy for anyone. Like, it might seem like the person beside you has got it all figured out, but they don't. Like, everybody struggles, and that's okay. So everything is difficult, but we'll get there.
Yeah, actually, and that leads really nicely into the next, into someone just posted what was how did you adjust into uni. I think exactly along those lines, you have to do it yourself. The biggest thing for me was I just learned, oh my gosh, I have to really I have to do my own lifting, and you have to reach out to your teachers yourself. They do not spoon feed you, and if you fall behind on any deadlines or anything, you're the one that is held accountable and have to plan that. So yeah, definitely learning that independence it's a blessing, but it's also a curse. You've got to do it all.
But also that sounds scary in a sense, but it's not like there's no support. There's heaps and heaps of support from all your teachers and TAs, and there's always going to be Facebook group chats for all your subjects and friends you meet in tutorials and everything. It's not like the support isn't there. It most definitely is. It's just that you have to reach for it.
Exactly. And there are Aimees of this world as well, who are part of the, peer mentoring program, and, things that are put in place to help you with all that sort of stuff as well. So seek out the Aimees and ask the questions, and, get yourself in there and really get involved, because that's the way you'll thrive at uni, rather than sort of, if you hide in your room and try and just do your assignments, it's not really the way to do it. So you definitely need to ask those questions. Okay, let me have a look here. So has doing a double degree, considering that all of you are doing double degrees, made it hard to fit in all the science units you wanted to study?
Yeah, I would definitely say no, it hasn't. There's definitely a lot of room to explore other parts of science separate from your major. Because I remember when I first chose to do a double degree, what they tell you is that they omit your electives. And that is true. They omit electives, the type of elective where you could do any subject at Monash University, regardless of which faculty it's from. But what they didn't kind of tell me, or what I didn't realize until later on, is that there are still so many electives designated in science for you to do, even in a double degree, and also in your other separate degree as well, depending on what it is. So even now, I'm in my third year, and I actually haven't even used a single science elective yet. So I have been faced with this amazing opportunity where I'm like, oh, I can choose whatever I want to do now. And so, yeah, it's definitely not limiting at all, depending on the other partner degree.
Cool, thank you. Excellent.
Also, very, very, very quickly.
Oh, that's good.
Degree is taken over 4 years, and a singular degree is just 3. And Monash has structured it so that you're not going to be a headless chook running around trying to get from class to class. It's actually structured. They do it perfectly. So it's as if you're doing the same amount per week, and per year as every other student. So you will manage to. Everyone will have the same problem in terms of trying to fit in what they want to do within their degree, but in terms of how it's structured and how long it takes for you, it's perfectly manageable, and not to worry.
Can I say something about that really quick? Sorry, I know we're running out of time, but there's so much to say. Yes, we're all doing double degrees, but you don't have to. Don't feel like we're any more ahead or anything. It's just that we also have other interests that we wanted to pursue. I couldn't choose between science and engineering. That's why I did it. It's not because I wanted to get ahead or whatever, you can just do a single degree and be perfectly fine. You can get a job, you can, go through everything. So I just want to put that out there that, yes.
Cool. Thanks, Casey. That's awesome. So we'll wrap it up there. If you have found this useful and you would like to talk to one of these lovely people in a bit more depth, or some of our other student ambassadors as well, the link that I've posted there, which is the Your Essential Guide Domestic Students, is extremely handy. If you have any research that you need to do about degrees, if you'd like to email either myself or my colleague Kim, if you need pathways advice, if you'd like to make an appointment to talk to one of these student ambassadors one-to-one, you can do all those things through that website. We've basically taken everything we think would be useful for a first year student or for somebody who's looking at our courses and dumped it into the one page because we know how hard the Monash website can be to navigate. So we tried to make it as easy for you as possible. And I hope that you found this panel a little bit insightful and you've learned a few things about things you can do as a student at Monash and different types of study that you might be able to do. I think we've answered all the questions. I think we've talked about most of the stuff. So as I said, if you do have any questions, send them through to that essential guide at domestic students. Our email address there, you can call, you can do all sorts of things like that. So thank you so much. And thank you for attending, and thanks to all of our lovely student ambassadors. I hope you all have a lovely afternoon.